Welcome to VYAPT Connect, an initiative to connect global leaders on pressing issues related to our planet. It's an effort to reiterate our commitment to make our planet sustainable for future generations. Topic of discussion this afternoon is decarbonizing economies, and we have exciting representation from steel, energy, cement, and electrical good businesses. Join with me to welcome Dinesh Agrawal, Joint Managing Director at Panasonic Life Solutions. Hi, Dinesh.
Good evening. Hi.
We have with us Mr. Santosh Pandey, Head of Strategy at ArcelorMittal. Hi, sir.
Good, good evening, all. Santosh here. I'm strategy head for Long Products Europe, just to correct.
Okay.
Thank
We have Prashant Mathur, the CEO of Satvik Green Energy. Hi, Prashant.
Good afternoon.
And we have with us Rajiv Nambiar, the CEO and MD at Sri Digvijay Cement.
Hi Pankaj, thank you for being here.
So the topic is really exciting and really pressing issue for all of us, and we are facing a lot of turbulence in the world because of this pressing issue. So I would like to have my first question with Santosh Pandey, and what are the market implications of increased pressure to decarbonize the steel industry, and how can a policy maker support the decarbonization of this critical commodity?
Yeah, Pankaj, very interesting question. I think it's not only for steel companies, but the pressure is in general for everyone, the whole ecosystem to decarbonize. Uh, yes, there is regional fragmentation that some regions have, huge pressure to decarbonize. For example, Europe, which is taking a leadership role overall. But you see, China is also taking now actions. India has committed, by decarb road for by 2070. America is still lagging behind; they are not committing anything. So there are different regions. It's a fragmented world as far as decarbonization is concerned. And in this fragmented world, then every industry has its own challenges, and everybody has to come forward to do it. In Europe, I think now there is a commitment by European governments, European Commission. So from 95 onwards, there is a systematic pressure. There is the uh, national allocation plan regime. So now we are in NAP 4, okay, starting from 95 onwards, NAP 1, NAP 2, NAP 3, and NAP 4, which is an incentive scheme and the cost scheme for the carbon emission. So, but in Canada, there is something else. In Australia, there is something else. So there are different regimes working. And, the government has to become enabler. Okay, so there is a commitment from everybody. Timeline differs. In view of the regional fragmentation, people have to come forward, learn from each other, those who have already pioneered in terms of how to implement it, and put up the framework, the policy, the framework, the support mechanism, and incentivize not only the production, that the production should become green or carbon free, but at the same time, you also have to promote the consumption. Okay, and the best government can do is they can start from themselves, that they will commit to consume only the green cement, the green steel, all the green product which has zero footprint or less footprint, right? So that's how the government have to, chip in. So this is one. Then second is no transition will happen because industry and the business works for profit, and it's a massive transition which is going to happen, which requires trillions of dollars of investment overall, and industry would not be able to afford it by itself. And also, to be fair, there are no 100% green technologies available. So there is a lot of innovation curve which we have to cover. And it cannot happen without the overall governmental support. So government has to frame policy to incentivize people or the companies, industries to transition, both in the production and consumption end. And then they have to put in place the framework to transition by capex and to fund the capex. So unless these 3-4 things will not take place, I think transition talks to decarb would be just talks, and you will not see tangible efforts and results. So that's my view, in summary.
This is significant, Santosh, because you talked about and you in fact educated us for the kind of efforts Europe is putting in to ensure that we have a sustainable future. But you also talked about that still we are lacking in terms of technology to put that on in actual rather than being it on paper. My second question goes to Mr. Dinesh Agrawal. In this global mission of zero carbon, how FMEG industry is working towards digitization to decarbonize, and we are probably hearing it from all the different sectors here in India, and people are making great promises, and we have also seen the helm of our country making a promise of 207 in 70, and that is quite optimistic in nature. How is your industry working out to decarbonize?
Yeah, so Pankaj, digitization for decarbonizing, I think is essentially, I think digitization is an enabler, right? And it enables you to run business faster with higher controls. So I would set that aside and answer this, in my own way. Uh, when Panasonic acquired Anchor Electricals in 2007, we raised this question to ourselves that while our parent company requires us to comply, because Japan is committed, as you know, to net zero, and Panasonic as a group is committed to net zero. We asked this question to ourselves that what should we do here in India, and we decided that when it comes to manufacturing, we'll follow the law of the land. We will not make any compromises, and we will consciously approach towards sustainability, over the period of few years. And that's what we did, because the factories that we inherited from the earlier owners were largely non-compliant, right? So we started, various initiatives in terms of conserving the water, conserving the energy. We started substituting our power generation with solar roof. We ourselves got into solar business, so we started all our factories. We started generating rooftop solar. So today, out of the 14 megawatts of power that we consume across our entire factories, we have about 4.5 megawatts which comes in from solar, and we will continue this initiative. Hopefully be able to meet our entire requirement from renewable over a period of time. The machines that we had, so we have a very large bank of injection molding and compression molding machines. So we changed all those machines over the years, made them, from hydraulic machines to electric VFD powered efficiency machines. All the mechanical, the pumps and compressors, we've gone in for efficient equipment. Things like mold. So we do a lot of plastic molding. We do tons and tons of plastic molding. So we change our molds to larger molds, higher capacity, higher cavities, so that per shot we were able to get higher output. And then, of course, the usual thing, the air conditioners, the lighting, we changed all of that to a lower power consumption using small automation products like sensors and controls. In the end, basically bringing down our total, power consumption. We did a lot of kinds. We involved our employees right up to the workers, made them sensitive about energy use. And so all of that has given us dividend. Similarly, on the water consumption, we have reduced about 7 million tons of 7 million liters of water consumption in the past few years by simple things like urinals. Urinals with you not using water. Wash basins are designed in such a way that the water efficiency, is ensured. Louvers in the cooling towers and so on. So I can go on and on. So this is on the factory side, on the manufacturing. So this initiative will continue, as I said, ultimately to achieve, zero emission, over a period of time. Now, as a marketeer, we believe that we are already making products which enable energy efficiency. So even a simple switch, when you switch on and off, it consumes energy, right? So we have designed switches which have low bounce, so that when it connects or disconnects, there is a low power loss. So, right from a switch on lighting that we are now promoting automation products like motion sensors. We have connected systems which monitor energy consumption at homes, in the offices, in the factories, and hence it can be the air conditioning and the lighting load. So for us, energy is the core of our business. So, and we will keep bringing in products which enable, energy monitoring and energy saving. Yeah, Pankaj, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dinesh, for sharing, the initiatives with which Panasonic has taken, and I'm sure, coming from what Anchor was in 2007 to what Panasonic is, Panasonic Life Solutions in 2021. I think it's a great transformative, thing, which itself in a story, for that matter. Uh, when we talk about these kind of things in terms of transformation, there's one industry which definitely comes into picture, and which is cement industry. So my question to Rajiv is, and before that I just wanted to make one statement. In 2015, cement industry generated around 2.8 billion tons of CO2, which is equivalent to 8% of global, of that's a global total, which is a greater share than any country other than China or US. So if I have to make a statement, then if this cement industry were a country, it would be the third largest emitter in the world. Um, so, what's the cement industry snapshot on carbon emission, Rajiv?
Thank you, Pankaj. I think it's a scary figure. Probably the core sector industry is creating in terms of emission. Let me take you to a larger landscape.
That was 2000.
If you
That
look
was
at it,
2015, not 2021.
and let me take you larger global level. I think global level, the globe emits almost around 50 to 51 billion tons of carbon in a year, and basically the carbonization roadmap is so huge. It has gone beyond imagination to see, and two or three industries, or three or four industries actually has a very strong footprint, and one among us, along with steel, plastic, as well as electricity. And if you see, in spite of the world coming to its standstill during Corona, during the first wave, the total emission control was hardly, I think, around 5%. So this shows that even if the world is standstill, the emission is continuing, and when the world moves faster, actually, the emission levels are going to be much more than that. And as you said, actually, the cement is one of the largest emitters, second in the world for Indian cement. And the reason is actually Indian cement industry is the second largest cement in the world. We have almost around 500 million capacity per annum compared to China's maybe somewhere around 1,500 million ton. So obviously we stand out in terms of the total cement emission from the world, no doubt about it. And if you look at an average footprint, the chemistry behind cement actually is basically emitting carbon. When you heat this carbon CaCO3, we get carbon dioxide. 45% is coming out as carbon dioxide, which is going to the air. And you can't change the chemistry if you want to make cement actually, unless there is a different technology. There is no other way to reduce it actually. So this is the biggest handicap in terms of us. But there are ways and means in terms of how the industry is coping up with to make sure that we become more responsible in terms of carbon footprint reduction. Look at the science of climate change. Science of climate change involves chemistry, physics, political science, economic, as well as engineering. And like some of our other speakers are told, in terms of technology engineering, there's a large portion which is to be done. But as far as cement chemistry is concerned, actually, as far as the production setup is concerned, there is not much of immediate resolution which is being seen. But when you look at cement as a whole, there are umpteen avenues that the industry is trying hard to make it a big change. And if you see the footprint of industry carbon, there's a large variation, 480 kg per ton of cement what is made to around 650 and 670 kg per ton. So that's a large variation between various cement industry companies actually across the country itself. So, and a good note is actually Indian cement industry is one of the most competitive industry across the sectors in the world in terms of efficiency and usage of better methods. Look at what are the avenues possible for us from becoming a lower carbon emitter. Net zero is actually a dream, no doubt, but maybe the first step is actually becoming a lower carbon emitter. And obviously, it starts basically from a product perspective. There are multiple products which you can see in the market from the cement industry, which are high intensive in terms of, there are a lot of products which is low intensive. The world has to move, India has to move, and the consumer has to move from a larger carbon footprint product towards a lower carbon footprint, which is possible. And there are some companies who are doing extremely good in terms of a very low carbon footprint products. And it is basically from the government to create a stipulated norms to see that actually some compulsion has to come for moving towards low carbon products. For the consumer end, actually the consumer has low carbon, high carbon products, and definitely move toward a low carbon product. And obviously the economy has to support in terms of creating that awareness and sustainability for creating this digital. Secondly, from the product, if I go to the process, actually, yes, apart from product, is the next big thing could be the process. How are we going to make sure that actually we make a very efficient cement manufacturing technologies, which is possible from the current setup is actually that everyone is trying very hard, actually racing against the time and each other to see that the efficiency of the cement manufacturing improves. It creates a large pool of improvement in terms of the carbon footprint, which is already going on. The best thing is actually industry tracks the emissions very clearly, whether it is scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emission, and including even the last bit of the transport emissions being quite nicely tracked today to see which all avenues possible for us to improve that. And one big thing what industry is currently doing is in terms of the alternates. Is there anything which is the fuel constitutes the biggest emitter, and fuel and power constitutes more than 2/3 of our total in terms of economy as well as in terms of emissions. So alternative fuel and alternative raw material and alternative power sources. And some of our colleagues are there in this who must be mastering in terms of alternative power sources. A big thing which has happened in the industry the past 3 to 4 years is, if you look at it, the technology in terms of waste heat recovery, which is taking the power, the costly power, as well as the low carbon power it is coming here. I think most of the industries with the alternative fuel technology, which is taking the waste heat which is coming in the process and recycling back to the power requirement. And obviously the new technologies like carbon capture, which is still in nascent stage, not into commercial applications, where the emitting carbon can be captured from the chimney and see that actually the carbon is stored and used for some of our purposes. The challenge is huge, no doubt about it. I think the industry is also moving, understanding the importance and moving towards in the right direction. So maybe the country one day, the country what you have described, we are trying to reduce into state. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajiv, for the inputs. I think obviously we have to put in a lot of efforts to ensure and that we have lesser amount of carbon emission going on, and even the consumer has to choose to ensure that we have more greener form of cement coming in future. But one thing which connects all the industries is energy, and if we can put in all the forms of energy put together, the economy of energy sector is somewhere close to $10 trillion. Just to give you a figure, India, has a need of around 2.33 lakh megawatt of energy per hour, out of which we are having 60% of energy produced by coal sector. By 2029 or 2030, it's going to be 54%. So one of the segments which is going to be largely efficient, largely benefiting is the green energy segment. So my question to Prashant, you have worked a lot in green energy segment. Here with Satvik. Prior to this, you worked with Adani. With respect to economic issues, the need for substantial low carbon investments in the energy sector is seen as major challenge. So can you share some insights around it?
Yeah, thank you very much. So traditionally, we have been wired to use thermal as a source of energy and electricity. So all these years, renewable energy has not been a focus, largely from the government as well as from the industry, and because the cost of renewable energy was very high, and that's why the major share was coal and thermal. Um, Now, obviously, that is changing, but ultimately, everything has to have economic sense before adaptability happens. So earlier it was like wind was kind of more, and solar, because you know probably because the focus was more on wind, but and solar also did not make economic sense. But that has changed. So currently solar has about, from what has happened, is only 6% of the energy share. And renewable, as per National Solar Mission, renewable energy 175 gigawatt, which has been now revised to 450 gigawatt. So the government is now very serious about, and lion share is going to come with solar. The government is very serious about now moving or transitioning from coal-based, thermal-based energy towards renewable energy. If if we see that the power cost generating from renewable energy is actually now even cheaper than coal. So, but the initial capex is a issue. Once you have a solar power plant, the initial capex is high, but then you benefit it for 25 years at least, or even more. So that has been challenged traditionally, but that is kind of now moving out. The other challenge which we and the other people see is that solar is only during the day. you know so the dependency on other sources is also kind of seen as an importance. So that is now being through hybrid projects and through storage. So all that is happening. Again, the storage is expensive right now, so that is also moving out. The other is obviously, one is cost. The other is the 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 banking and the funding to have that initial capex. So these are the few factors which has been a hindrance. But now, since economic sense is there, now low carbon investment and renewable energy is getting more and more popular. And since net zero is the motto by 2070, solar has to have a lion share. So about 70% of that has to, at least by 2050, has to come by renewable energy.
So that's really ambitious figure coming up from Prashant. We have to have at least 70%, and that's obviously that's a lion's share. And so there's a lot of business coming up for Satvik in another 1 decade, which I see. So uh, because we are going to have a lot of and in India, I think we are going to have all the business attractions coming in for green energy segment. Thank you for your inputs, Prashant. Uh, when this kind of an we are seeing energy being the backbone of all the industries, but definitely what happens is we are looking towards a clean and zero carbon future. And one of the industry which comes in main focus when we talk about household things is FMEG industry. So my question to Dinesh you is, the transition towards a clean and zero carbon future is underway, when we are seeing at the top level it is being driven from various countries, and it will change almost every aspect of FMEG companies assets and also operations. How can the industry accelerate with carbon neutral, high efficiency and electric appliances?
So I think, Pankaj, part of it is getting driven by the regulation. and part of that is getting driven by the market expectation or the customer's expectation. So the drive towards efficiency using, with the electrical products, as you've already seen, the classical example is lighting, right? So I think the speed at which India achieved its LEDification is faster than China, as I'm told. I think China took over 10 years to LEDify completely. I think we did it in about half that time, which is primarily because of ESL intervention, the government intervention. Uh, so you see, in the past 12 years, we have gone on from incandescent bulbs to LED, right? And there was a huge, a large phase of fluorescent in between. So it's all moved towards efficiency, and I said part of it is because of the market, change that was happening. The consumer expectations, the consumer saw that happening in other parts of the world, and then the acceleration happened because of the regulations. So we ourselves as a company, of course, we continue to strive. So even in a thing like a bulb, LED bulb, we continue to improve efficiencies. Lumens per watt is the measure which you generally hear about. So we will keep improving the high, to get higher lumens or higher light output per watt of energy consumed. Similarly, if you look at fans, that is again driven by the regulation. So when the Bureau of Energy Efficiency started intervening in this category, fans and other appliances. So 5-star fans, consumers started becoming aware what is a 5-star fan, right? What is the advantage of buying a 5-star fan? The government, the electricity board started subsidizing purchase of 5-star fans. And now the move is towards the DC motor fans, BLDC, brushless DC motor fans, which can normally would consume less than 30 watts of power against normal fan, which consumes about 45 to 50 watts of power. Right. So there again, it's part regulation, part demand of consumer. So consumer certainly is becoming aware about energy saving. Though the residential consumer is still not there, but I think very soon he or she is becoming aware of this. So as I mentioned, we are in business of energy. We do energy generation, we do energy monitoring, we do energy measurement, and we do energy saving devices. So our effort on this will continue. So like solar business has spoke about, while our current focus is on commercial and industrial rooftop installation, because we believe that today it makes sense to install a captive solar rooftop. It pays for itself. It pays for itself in less than 5 years. In fact, 3.5 to 4 years in many cases. To install rooftop solar, and this is going to continue. So there'll be a lot more of rooftop solar happening. It is already happening at individual homes level, but we intend to intensify this to the individuals as well. And as one of the panelists said, the cost of storage is an important element, and that has been exponentially coming down. So since Panasonic is also into lithium-ion batteries, we also believe that in the next few years, storage, a captive storage will make sense. So that means you can generate power during the day and then consume it in the night. So this and then businesses like EV charging business that we got into, EV charger business that we have got into, the energy monitoring systems, the IoT products. So we've got IoT products today which you can retrofit. Even in existing office, you can install the sensors on the lighting and the HVAC that you have, any kind of air conditioning that you have, and you can optimize the energy consumption based on the occupancy, based on the daylight and the humidity conditions around. So these are the initiatives that we are taking as a company towards carbon neutrality.
That's a great insight. In fact, when we talk about the home appliances and other things, we have come a long way, from what we were 12 years ago to what we are today. It's a long way we have traveled, and still there's a long journey because of the kind of daunting task we have in front of us. Thank you, Dinesh, for sharing your inputs with us. Santosh, but somewhere I have just read, and I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. 0.7% is the industrial output for steel industry, while we emit 7% of carbon. Compared to the kind of steel we are having. I'm talking about the worldwide. And you just answered, while you took the first question about what are the steps being done in Europe and maybe worldwide in order to take this kind of situation head on. But what are the sustainability considerations shaping investment in the steel value chain? Because we understand it's one of the very important industry to shape the society and sectors. So, and how can steel consuming companies understand the overall carbon footprint of their suppliers?
Yeah, thank you, Pankaj. Yeah, so steel remains still one of the main construction material in the world, and everything you touch, you find steel. So consumers basically, at large today, there is no incentive to consume a zero carbon steel. Okay, although there are zero carbon steel available in the market, we are ourselves supplying it, and we have branded it X Carb, which is carbon free, and also X Carb recycle and renewably produced, so with renewable energy. So in value chain of steel, when we talk of emission, or for any product in Europe, we call scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. So we have divided the whole emission in three parts. Okay. So scope 1 is the direct technological emission which is happening in the process of making of the steel. Okay. And scope 2 is the energy input which is coming from outside, like from the power producers. And scope 3 is everything else which is ancillary. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So our focus generally is on scope 2 because there the maximum amount of CO2 emission is happening, and this we are addressing through the technological footprint change by migrating from the traditional basic oxygen furnace route or blast furnace route to electrical arc furnace route, and replacing direct iron ore with a DRI. So we have multiple, investment programs where we are doing this footprint shift. And we are now shifting scope 2 from the traditional power to more renewable power. Okay. So we can take the 85 to 90% of the emission of the whole steel value chain in production. So that can be taken care. And for the residual portion, scope 3 emission depends on how my suppliers would be able to transform themselves and make themselves zero carbon. Okay. And definitely it will happen, but still the technology is such that there will still be some residual, maybe 100 kg left. Mm-hmm. And then you have to either capture it, store it, transform it by smart technologies. So we believe that there is some sort of technology available through which a large portion can be transformed, and then we have our own R&D facilities where we are working on many innovative things to take care of it. But we believe that all the R&D is not happening in our labs, and there are smart minds out there everywhere in the world. So we have launched a fund called XCAR Fund, and we are going to fund all interesting technologies, innovation which is happening globally. And we have already started, like Prasant said, that energy storage is a big challenge going forward. So if you migrate to completely renewable, the sun is shining in the day and night nothing is happening. So how do you balance the grid? So we have funded a company called Bloom Energy, which is in the business of storage. And similarly, we are funding different ideas through our innovation fund. Okay, so we are sorting out our own industrial issues as well as spending in future technology and also new ideas and new innovation. So this is how we are trying to solve, and we are offering today also the carbon free steel if somebody is interested. Of course, the governments are, as I said in the beginning, the policy framework needs to address it. Okay, so if the government is doing some construction or some new building planning is being done, they have to plan for zero carbon building, and therefore they will look for zero carbon material, and this will again convert into demand, and therefore incentivize the production. But coming at the front end of the channel, like Prashant said that, and also Dinesh rightly said that how India transformed from a conventional light to a LED light, over a period of 5 years. It all happened because of government support, both for industry, for production, as well as for consumption. Means the consumers were given, subsidies. The same kind of thing needs to happen in broader economy to incentivize the shift to zero carbon. So you have to fund to industry the capex, you have to fund the consumer or incentivize the consumer to consume and shift the demand or the consumption pattern. Like the government is giving subsidy for electrical vehicles. Okay, you also have to give subsidy or production link incentive to produce electrical cars. Okay, so Tesla, for example, they have been enjoying this production, incentives, and the consumers in Europe, here in Luxembourg, you buy, for example, an electrical vehicle, you get 8,000 euro off. It's a subsidy from the government. So these kind of, infrastructure support needs to be in place to make the society completely transition, and this will not happen without the, government and bigger organizational support.
This was a great insight, Santosh. Earlier we used to talk about that one has to have, learnability skills, get to have some skills to stay relevant. But today I can talk about that businesses are creating their own ecosystem to stay relevant in this world. Uh, we are seeing how businesses itself is ensuring that they go in greener form and creating that kind of an ecosystem. Speaking to governments to have certain policies around it so that they are more sustainable and people are able to buy those kind of, and people have to have those kind of choices in minds to buy from market. Thank you, Santosh, for sharing that those inputs. Coming on to Rajiv, you rightly talked about that a lot of things are happening in the cement industry. 550 million tons is the kind of annual output we have. But seeing the kind of aspirations businesses have here in India, I'm sure this is going to increase in couple of years, and this is going to increase exponentially, if I'm not wrong. Kind of infrastructure boost India is going to get with a lot of aspirations coming up from the central government. How can cement industry reduce carbon footprint, and what are the pathways of sustainable future? Do we have any kind of technology as of now? As you rightly said, that if the process is not going to change, probably will not be able to do much in terms of lessening our carbon emission.
Pankaj, let me give you one more maths, which we normally talk in terms of what impact a consumer can make when he buys a product which is low carbon technology product, or low carbon product, not technology product, low carbon product. If someone is buying 1 ton of a blended cement, which has got much lower carbon input, he is creating an impact of planting 11 trees to the tune of grown 11 trees. If you see, if you are able to, if every country understands, and biggest consumer being the government understands, how many Amazons we can create every day. That's the power of the product actually, and we are very passionate about actually creating this very strong input in terms of creating this the power of the product. And like many of our panelists said, the biggest change has happened from the understanding and support of the government. Today, most of the biggest consumer of cement in the country is the Union of India. And if they make a one step ahead, actually, there will be a drastic change the way the carbon footprint changes from the industry side. Because it automatically happens, it is sustainable, it is economical, and this one, it is a proud product, it is a much superior product in the long term. So 4 to 5 actually very big impact can be created just probably changing few of the orders. So that's the power of the government actually in terms of driving a low carbon product which can benefit the world, the mother earth, as well as the consumer. Like many experts are here actually in the panel is related to the technology angle of power technology. Power constitutes major. In fact, 66% fuel and power is our input. So there the biggest input can happen from our own waste heat reduction as well as from the solar as well as the hybrid, which is really zooming. I'm sure Prashant must be making a lot of effort in making sure that the hybrid situation comes in. And very proud to say that actually we produce or we depend mostly around 55% of our power in terms of renewable, put together both hybrid as well as WHR. And this has been the great journey, and most of the companies are now taking a declaration saying by at least 2050, 100% of the power we are going to be away from the fossil fuel. That's the kind of input actually the cement industry is trying to make as a vision and mission. If you see the biggest advantage of the cement industry is the temperature what we operate to the tune of around 1400 to 500 degree. So that gives us ample opportunity to process any kind of toxic waste also without much of impact on the environment. So alternative fuel and alternative fuel technology is one of the key things where the industry is trying to make it. Today, I think on an average, industry must be consuming 6 to 7% of the total fossil fuel being replaced by alternative fuel. There are countries who are gone beyond 20% of the fuel is by alternative fuel. It could be the waste which is getting generated from the municipality, from other suppliers. So the alternate portfolio is actually very solidly and robustly driving the total fuel and raw material footprint. So that's a very welcome sign from everyone. And the due credit should go to the government in terms of they are really pitching through almost all the media to see that actually the industry is getting adapted faster. And good thing is the industry technology is also becoming better in terms of creating a good absorption level. CO2 capture, even I'm not an expert in that. CO2 capture could be the next big thing which can happen in the industry. And I don't have much of technology or know-how about it, but it is expected that actually the CO2 what we emit could be captured. It's being captured in certain areas. I think Europe has made some good significant progress, and India it is in the miniature stage. And if all these things put together, I think industry will be able to reduce at least at par of industry standards. We will be able to reduce to a level where less than half a ton per ton of cement, the CO2 level can come down quite significantly. Thank you.
That's great, Rajiv, when you talked about that how we can probably reduce the emission from cement industry. A question, which comes in my mind is, Rajiv, do you also think that probably even not only industries but a common man should also be educated around it? How, for example, you talked about one of the things which can probably is as equivalent to planting around 11 grown trees, and then that's huge. And obviously, if we start doing like that, obviously we will also have an Amazon here in India. uh, do you also think that probably educating a common man, or we need to have certain initiatives as how a common man could drastically decrease the carbon footprint?
This is actually the biggest challenge for the industry. If you look at it, the consumer awareness program, we put solid effort in terms of converting from the traditional ordinary Portland cement to the blended cement portfolio. The biggest obstacle today itself is the consumer awareness. In spite of putting a huge amount of energy, money, and time, we are not seeing like the panelists was talking about the conversion to LED, which is pretty faster. Does not really happen in the industry. And I think more than the consumer, once the government, it's a superpower, right? The government makes one step, I think it can happen much faster. The construction and the norms which is to be followed in making sure that the combined with the emission level and the product level, we can really create a wonder in terms of this. So
Thank
that
you so
is
much.
still large piece to be covered actually. If every consumer in India is aware that when I buy a product, actually I will buy a low carbon product, that's going to create a tsunami of actually the change in terms of CO2 footprint.
True. What's your take, Prashant? Before I ask you a question, which is to do with your solar business, how do you think probably educating a common man can help us to have more sustainable carbon emission kind of thing in the atmosphere?
I think educating a common man is very important because from solar point of view, we can say that every potential roof is a power plant, and we being a country which has over 300 solar days, high solar radiation, there is it's a no-brainer that we can generate power at such a low cost by just harnessing the solar energy. So, but when we go and talk to people, people are not even aware of that. The main question which people ask me is, if I put a solar on my house, how many ACs can I run from it? These basic education has also not happened, and we have done a bad job in doing that, but also the government. So basically, solar on your rooftop, people are not aware that it's a power plant. You generate power. If you don't consume it, you can feed it into the grid. So basically, you can save your electricity bill by putting solar on your rooftop. You may or may not consume it, but people are not aware of it. Even from industry point of view, industry energy or electricity cost for some of the industries is like raw material for them. Most of them raw material, because it's so expensive, and they have their rooftops. I'm glad Dinesh, Rajiv, Santosh, these are from large organizations who have understood the importance. But there are so many medium-sized industries in India who have been buying so expensive electricity, not realizing they have a rooftop, a shed, which they can generate power at a fraction of the cost, with no or very low maintenance, and save on the electricity bill, which directly contributes into their product cost. So I think that education has to happen. People are realizing that, over a period of time they will. And there are also companies in the market who you know who are ready to put up a solar power plant on your rooftop with their investment, and you pay whatever units they sell to you. A government has also given accelerated depreciation if you install solar on your rooftop. So you get 40% depreciation, 40% depreciation second year, first year, and then so these on your balance sheet also it reflects. So there's so many things which are already there, but education has not happened. People are not aware. Industry is also not aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming,
But I'd just like to, add.
please.
So, this, ultimately it all has to make an economic value. So this whole adoption, let's say even of the solar rooftop, is getting accelerated now because it makes an economic value. The costs have come down, the module costs have come down, right? And this is true, I think, for all the technologies that we're talking of in terms of moving towards sustainability. And that's where I guess Prime Minister Modi has been right, because see, we are still a developing nation. So we should not pressurize ourselves into doing things that don't make an economic value. We should have the intent towards moving towards sustainability, but doesn't mean that we have to do it in 10 years or 20 years, right? We will take we will have to take our own time. Just to give you a small example, I was talking earlier about this whole debate that we had, that today when I brand any product as Panasonic, it has to be a product which is kind of green. It has got to be RoHS compliant. It has to be made in a factory which is a kind of factory which is using green energy. Now we make a switch which costs 11 rupees, right? We start from that and we go on to a switch which is about 300 rupees. Now, if I start applying all these all these technologies to an 11 rupees switch, I'm going to make it, maybe I'll make it 20 rupees or 25 rupees, right? So today, when I'm able to provide an affordable, safe switch to a consumer at 11, is it really right for me to, jack up that price and make it 2025? So it has to be a gradual process. That's the point I'm trying to make, that while it's great and we should be all conscious about this and move towards it, it is the market, the state of market, the state of economy, also which has to be kept in consideration. Yeah. That's...
Thank you. Thank you for your input, Dinesh. Anything which Santosh, which you would like to add on this?
Yeah, sure. I agree with Dinesh, because it has to make economic sense. And when you are at the beginning of the innovation curve, things don't make economic sense. Imagine how costly the solar power was in past, and now it is cheaper than the conventional coal power. Similarly, the example of the switch production, and there are many more, right? We are in a steel industry facing challenge of replacing the natural or conventional gas with the hydrogen. And the cost of hydrogen is going to be more. So it means that no innovation will happen, people will not invest. So the governments have to come in and chip in that in the beginning of the innovation curve, when you shift, number one, I fund the capex. Number two, I fund the cost differential. And then you become self-sustainable, right? When the economies of scale happens, when the technology gets proven, then things take care of itself. And I always give this example of India's LED transformation. A normal incandescent bulb costed maybe 10 rupees in India in those days, or 25 rupees. Okay. And a LED bulb costed 300 rupees, 500 rupees, right? And the government bridged the, delta, and the transformation happened. Okay. And you could climb in India the change or the transformation curve twice fast compared to China, for example. So sometimes if you are behind the curve in the transformation of the change, you have opportunity to catch faster than others. Okay. For example, you see the transformation of mobile communication in India. So the whole world took 100 years to go to the switches and the lines and everything to become connected by telephone. And India jumped frog and transformed itself, and every nook and corner of the country is connected today. And that happened in less than 10 years' time. So technology has immense possibility and opportunity. So I believe that even though India has started late on this journey of CO2 transformation or decarbonization, but with this ambition of 2070, there is a great opportunity because the world outside is innovating, technology is getting proven, okay, and everybody will have chance to catch up faster than others, okay. But at some point in time, one has to start and not delay, because this is a global challenge and not challenge of one, and it's for the whole humanity basically.
You rightly said.
One more comment, Pankaj, that Rajiv said how to educate the consumers. So planting trees, etc., you convert and show them the magnitude of the carbon saving one consumer is bringing to their life. Similarly, for my industry, for example, people have to understand that steel is infinite recyclable. Once you transform steel, it never gets destroyed. We keep on recycling it over and over and over and over again. So in terms of circular economy, steel is one of the best material in the world to be used. Okay. And therefore we are giving recycle, steel with a certification produced with, green energy. So it has one of the least impact in terms of carbon footprint. So people have to be aware how to, make their choices. And of course, there has to be consumption support in the beginning. Okay. So if we put all together in this framework, I think we will go for this decarbonized world. I think it's possible. And there is a huge opportunity for everybody in this.
So true, Santosh. In fact, you rightly said that we have catched up faster and we started late. But that is also because of one of the reasons which is there, I think, which is there in the DNA of Indian culture. Because we have a habit of catching, late flights, late trains, late buses. So it goes a cyclic way. That's there in our DNA. If we can do it in our daily basis, why not on industry? I feel that way, and we have done a fantastic job like this. Okay, in fact, my last question goes to Prashant. Prashant, the race to zero emission, how can industries move toward a low carbon future and its impact on the economy?
So part of it I already have has discussed, but industry contributes almost 30% of carbon footprint. So that's a huge number. And apart from energy efficient tools, alternative fuels, carbon storage, which one of the panelists already talked about. I can talk it from the electricity and energy point of view. And one obviously point which I talked about was going to renewable energy, rooftop solar. You can go to, there is a capex model and there's a opex model. There are companies who are ready to install at your rooftop and sell you power. If and once your rooftop is used, there are options like open access. You can you can do group captive projects. You can, there's a land wherein you can put solar there if there is no roof available for the industry. I think most of the cement and steel are already doing it. I'm sure Rajiv's company must be also already doing it. So you open access projects, you feed it into the grid at that location, and the government gives you the option to buy power at a low cost, even if it is not in your campus. So that is there. Government gives you accelerated depreciation. You get green loans. There's World Bank, Asian Development Bank. They are all giving IREDA, REC, PFCs. They're all there to fund those kind of projects. But so that's all renewable energy has been doing. But apart from that, I think as the automobile also contribute a lot and the world is moving towards electric vehicles, I think industry should also focus on charging station infrastructure, so that people get motivated to to move towards electric vehicles. And if they have infra available in in with the industry, I think that can also be a step towards reducing the carbon footprints. So those kind of initiatives the industry can take for reducing their carbon footprints.
Very true. In fact, you talked about the various infrastructure which we need to develop so that we can have significant lower carbon footprints in coming future. One question which comes to our mind, and we have discussed is a lot, but obviously future seems to be very exciting. And if I have to talk, or while every industry is shedding, probably the solar industry or the green energy segment is building up. So how is the exciting the future going to be in another next 1 decade? We are talking about this decade belongs to let's say South Asia regions, or you talk about India per se. How do you think about this particular decades to belongs to India? Dinesh, your take, please.
So yeah, the date certainly belongs to India. In fact, that should have happened much earlier, but never too late. So the Indian manufacturing industry is yet to see its full potential grow. So I'm a firm believer that India will become a design and manufacturing base to the world, right? And you can already see parts of it happening. I think the auto components industry did it much earlier, but the other industries as well, other men are falling in line. So as I mentioned earlier, I think India will become a part of the global supply chain, an important global supply chain, primarily because of a few reasons. One is that it's got its high captive consumption. So take an example of let's say Ola scooters. I mean, can you imagine any country that has started manufacturing two-wheelers and you have such large order booking? Now, as a manufacturer, that's a delight because I can plan my capacity, my component my material cost. I can bring down the cost of the product. And once I have catered to my domestic demand, I can start exporting that, price competitive product. Now, this is a kind of an opportunity that exists for many of the manufacturing industries, and I think India will get there. India strategically also, geographically also is well positioned, because if you look at the countries which are going to develop in future, the South Asian countries, some of the Southeast Asian countries, the Central Asian countries, and of course the African continent. These are the markets of future, and India is well poised geographically to cater to those markets. Number one. Number two, the speed of innovation, the cost of innovation is much lower in India. What I've seen in my last 15, 20 years of my in Panasonic, and which is great, because the products can be very easily tweaked, modified for the local requirements, and manufactured in India and supplied to these part of the world. So from domestic consumption point of view, and also as a sourcing and design base, India will be the flavor for not only for 1 decade, but at least 3 to 4 decades, for now. And I think the initiatives which are being taken towards it, of course, one always believes or wants things to happen faster. But since you spoke about solarization, I think we are taking steps in the right direction, right? So there's an intent for 400 gigawatts of power generation. There is already capacities which are getting created towards module manufacturing and cell manufacturing, and going backwards towards silicon wafer manufacturing. So it's all happening in tandem. Of course, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But essentially, we have to reduce our dependence on countries like China, so that we don't get blackmailed for any materials or any components, as all of us have been blackmailed in the last 6 to 8 months, as we have seen in the electronic components. So India's got all of that coming in. Electronic industry is another area I can talk about at large length, but so this dependence on China, India will reduce, and in itself become a large base for manufactured products. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pankaj,
Thank you so much.
I will add one point actually. I was just thinking, when it comes to innovations, there are two sides of innovation. One is the demand for innovation. Second is the supply of innovation. If you look at it, low carb technology, there is a demand for innovation to a larger scale. And look at the other sectors where India has really caught up with us in terms of the in financial sector, in terms of innovation in automation. We have very nicely captured the leadership position, and I'm sure actually the area where supply innovation for low tech or low carbon technology, it's going to happen actually, because the cultural innovation is actually set up in the country for the past 5 to 6 years in a very booming manner, and that will definitely come to this sector also, and that could probably bring down the cost associated with the decarbonization of the whole process.
Okay, great input, Rajiv, in terms of decreasing the cost for the footprints of the carbon. Santosh, your take, please. Anything which you'd like to add on this? Because obviously the decade is exciting, and we are seeing a lot of things happening in such a small time, in a short time, in fact. A lot of disruptions happening, some good, some bad. What's your take?
Well, I think coming back to your previous question on India, I think not only the decade, but in my opinion, the century could belong to India, depending on how we execute there and how the policy framework evolves through the government interventions. And on a larger question, yes, there is a huge opportunity for India to innovate, to take leadership position on different technology and different manufacturing or industrial base. Of course, in software, everybody knows globally that India is a big power. But the similar opportunity is there in every sector. You name the sector, there is an opportunity. So I have no doubt that given the resources which India has, it can always take leadership position in everything. But we have to manage ourselves, better, and the risks which are on horizon, they need to be managed better. Okay, so that's my take. I think, for example, in steel, just from my sector, I can give you an example that China manufactures 1 billion ton. Okay, precisely 1 billion and 50 million ton. India manufactures 150 as of today, for example. Okay, our goal is to become by 2030 300 million ton. So imagine the kind of gap we are talking about. We will still not be China, and our steel consumption is one of the lowest per capita globally. So imagine the kind of opportunity we are talking about, and we don't consume so much. It means as you become a developed economy, your consumption of steel is growing.
True.
So there is a huge opportunity. We are still not there at the target of 2030, okay, because we have faltered in a couple of years, but I think we will be there. And then if you have to become, like China to consume more steel, then there is 700 million ton more to climb up. So
Which
this
is
just
5 times
explains
the
an
size.
opportunity, and the decarbonization economies. Of course, you have huge amount of, as Rajiv said, that there is demand for innovation. Okay, and this is a call out for all entrepreneurs, the young minds, the guys, students who are in the labs. This is the opportunity, next big destination for you to come up. So that's all from my side.
True, true. Great input, coming in for all the from all the guests over here, and we are seeing a lot of sustainable things coming up, and I'm sure the kind of aspirations India has in terms of shedding the carbon footprint we are going to achieve in years time what has been projected. But the important part is how the technology is helping us, and as Santosh said, he is calling out for people in lab, that how you can innovate, you can come up with different technologies which can help different businesses innovate better and probably help us to achieve the kind of net zero target we have. It has been really wonderful speaking to all of you here in VYAPT Connect, and this particular session reiterates our commitment to ensure that we have a sustainable planet for our future generations. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Dinesh. Thank you, Prashant. And thank you, Santosh. It has been great speaking to you, and I'm sure this particular platform will help many people to see and reflect on what they can do from an individual point of view as well to reduce the carbon footprint, what our Prime Minister, his ambitions plan takes up for 2070. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pankaj.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.